if you have a sleep apnea secondary to narcotics is the kind of the title here. But I was on narcotics for a long time. It's just funny. I was like, I'm in the bucket on all this stuff. So narcotics prescriptions cause side effects. That's well known. Or opioid crisis, blah blah blah. But that's not a diagnostic code. You're being prescribed narcotics, especially in 2023, for something, and I guarantee that something has a diagnostic code. So that might be, this might be back to the intermediate step kind of thing. But let's just talk about the fundamental part of why narcotics can, cause sleep apnea.
Ooh, so narcotics actually can cause central sleep apnea. So we always talk about obstructive sleep apnea, right? But central sleep apnea is actually your central component of your body, your brain, doesn't send you the signal to breathe. It suppresses your central nervous system, some of these medications that people are on. So a lot of these narcotics, that's what they do. And we'll see it on a sleep study, see somebody have central sleep apnea, and maybe we'll retest them again in the future. Maybe they're off their narcotics and now they don't have central sleep apnea. So it's interesting. No one night's sleep is the same, every time. But definitely narcotics would contribute to a central sleep apnea in patients.
I hope you guys were listening to that because that's another first for me. Totally makes sense for sure. It could just bypass the obstructive part and just go straight to the brain, and does. So that's a way to do it.
For sure. Yeah. I would say that's the biggest connection with the sleep apnea.
I guess other ways to do it would be, what other things that the narcotics cause. So could be like GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, or IBS,
Absolutely.
irritable bowel syndrome. Those can cause sleep apnea as well, or be a result of the narcotics. This is kind of getting back into the intermediate step part, but there's a link between all that stuff.
They could even cause things like leg movements to happen. Like you don't know what the narcotics are going to do and how your body's going to react to them. So again, with the examples you've given, I'm sure there are other issues, there are other ones out there as well. Those might be the ones that are best contributing for secondary diagnoses, but for sure, there's possibly other things that you're not even thinking about. I mean, I know it even changes your sleep, so not that that's the sleep apnea part of things, but narcotics, any medication you take, if you were to actually research what effect
go
it has
look at
on
the
your
side
sleep
effects.
stages,
Right.
yes, go look at the side effects and look at how it affects your sleep.
Right. There are 2 times when you don't need a nexus: when you file a claim while you're still on active duty, like a BDD claim, or when you're in the 1-year presumptive period. Any other time, you need a nexus. You also need a strategy. Check out my boot camp and contact my med team if you need a nexus. Yeah, it's funny, and that's why secondary claims, once you get your head wrapped around them, I mean, it's literally, there's a way to talk through any secondary. If you have a disability that you want to file a claim for and you're already service connected for something, you can do it, but just kind of, since we talked about deviated septum, this just kind of came to mind. If I got out, filed a claim for deviated septum because it was on my little problem list that I never showed up to my CNP exam for, but let's say I went and won it, and then I went back 20 years later or something and filed this sleep apnea secondary to deviated septum. I don't know what the ratings are. I'm sure they're low, 0 or 10%, but I got mine fixed. So you could, I wouldn't file that claim just personally, maybe just because I looked at not filing it, but I had deviated septum. When your septum is fixed, when your septum, you can breathe, then you no longer have that disability. So you might end up with a reduction trying to do that. So just make sure it's a current diagnosis, not an old diagnosis, I guess is my point.
Be true, be honest.
Well, we forget, and we're just service connected, and just cool, I got it, and it's just going to stay there, and it just doesn't work like that. It always needs to be current symptoms on anything that's service connected. So depending on how long that you've had the rating, after you've had it for 20 years, it's protected no matter what. But I talk about going back, and when you file claims, they can reduce you and increase you. And this would be a good example since this is one of our topics that we talked about.